Dear students of class 8A and 8B, today the same lesson, what teaching already I have completed, I am going to re-explain it. Lesson chapter number 7, Rise of British Power in Bengal. I am going to re-explain it from the beginning to the last. Now, how did the European traders come to India? By way of the sea route discovered by Vasco da Gama. The first Portuguese came to India as traders. And afterwards, other European traders also came to India like Dutch, Spanish, Denmark. They all came one by one. And at last, the French and the British, they came to India to trade with us. The European traders became very powerful and wealthy in making trade with our country. But gradually the Dutch and the Portuguese ceded way to English and the French. As a result of it, English monopolized their trade, and there was a competition between French and the English traders. But afterwards, the French East India Company, established their control over Pondicherry and established one factory in Mahe and Yama and Karaikal. The steep competition between the British and the French led to a series of wars known as Carnatic Wars. Now, what happened? How did the first Carnatic War take place between the French and the British, and when? In the year 1744, the first Carnatic War was taken place between Britain and France. And it had a great impact in India. Why? Because British threatened to occupy Pondicherry, but still the French did not get back and declared war. Moreover, the French, led by Joseph Francis Dupleix, proved that they would be able to defeat the British. They wanted to prove that they were confident enough that they would be able to defeat the British. And apart from this, the British appealed to Anwaruddin, the Nawab of Carnatic, to provide with a group of soldiers for fighting against the French. But ultimately, he helped the British, but still the British was defeated by the French forces in the first Carnatic War held in the year 1744. But in 1748, with the end of the war in Europe, both these two powers, the French and the British, were fighting against each other. But in the year 1748, the war came to an end, and Anglo-French hostilities in India also ceased. And afterwards, in accordance with the peace settlements, the Madras was returned to whom? To the British. Then, second Carnatic War. The first Carnatic War took place, and then the second Carnatic War. In the second Carnatic War, which was held in the year 1749, the British in the meantime had become very powerful than the French. The French still accepted the challenge of the British because of the peace treaty. In spite of being warned by the British, the two powers supported rival candidates of Hyderabad and Carnatic. In Hyderabad, the French supported Muzaffarjan, and in Carnatic, the British supported, in Hyderabad, the French supported Muzaffarjan, but British supported in Hyderabad, British supported Nasir Jan. And in Carnatic, the French supported Chanda Sahib, and British wanted to install Muhammad Ali. As a result of it, and war was taken place. But this time the British force, the British army defeated the French forces, and afterwards a peace treaty was signed between the French and the British. And Dupleix, who he was proud of himself that he would be able to provide bold leadership while fighting against the British, proved to be wrong, and he called back to French headquarters, Paris. He was recalled to France. And next one, the Third Carnatic War. The Third Carnatic War, peace treaty between the two powers was short-lived, but once again another war, a war was broken out between the British and the French in India. A peace treaty was signed in the year 1763, but the French were given back their factories in India only. After the defeat of the Third Carnatic War, the factories of the French were given back to them, but some restrictions also imposed on them that the factories could serve only as trade centers but not as colonial outposts. They were warned not to use at colonial outposts like the British. The French influence declined, and then the British went on become the masters of India. Afterwards, the conquest of Bengal. In the 18th century, Bengal was the richest province of India and fertile province. Huge income from revenues would come from Bengal. And the British East India Company was mostly active in this state, Bengal, from the very beginning. By 1750, Bengal accounted for almost 75% of the company's procurement. The British in Bengal had, by the 18th century, utilized free trade by way of utilize the firman of the Mughal emperor. The Mughal emperor's firman, they started utilizing it in Bengal, and without paying any tax, any revenues, they continued trade in Bengal. The Nawab, although objected, but they had no what to do because there was a firman of the Mughal emperor with them, and by utilizing the firman, they abused the right to free trade and awarded to them by abused, and afterwards it led to a conflict between Sirajuddaulah. Sirajuddaulah did not want to accept that practice, that kind of practice. Without paying taxes and revenues, they continued trade in Bengal. On being the Nawab of Bengal, Sirajuddaulah forbade them from practicing it, but still they kept on doing it. As a result of it, they started plotting against Nawab Sirajuddaulah in order to shift him from power, and they captured almost all the nobles and bureaucrats. They won over Mirzafar to work in favor of them, provided they would make him the Nawab of Bengal. As a result of it, they all formed a group and started conspiracy and plotting against Nawab Sirajuddaulah. And hence, East India Company, under the leadership of Robert Clive, declared war against Nawab Sirajuddaulah in the year 1757. And in that very war, Nawab Sirajuddaulah was defeated by British East India Company, and then after the Battle of Plassey, the Nawab was executed, was captured and killed later, and Mirzapur temporarily was made the Nawab of Bengal. Now, what was about the consequences? The consequences of it was the company was given the zamindari rights of 24 parganas along with huge monetary tributes by Mirzafar, who became the Nawab of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. And Mirzafar was asked to pay an amount of 300 lakh rupees. Mirzapur was asked to pay a sum of 300 lakh rupees to the company. The English traders exploited the Indian artisans and peasants and farmers and in the interest of themselves, and textile industry could not survive because of the competition with other machine-made goods imported from England. As a result of it, most of the artisans, most of the artisan and craftsmen, they all became almost all unemployed. And afterwards, what happened to them? They almost all became unemployed. So this is the condition of Bengal. And afterwards, after the Battle of Plassey, another thing also took place, that was Mirzapur, who was unable to perform his duties and responsibilities comfortably, and was asked and ultimately was shifted from power, and the British made Mir Qasim as the Nawab of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Mir Qasim, by watching the competition between British traders and local traders, he abolished the duties on internal trade in order to bring a real competition between European traders and local traders. As a result of it, Mir Qasim was warned by the British, and ultimately the British declared war on Mir Qasim. In the meantime, Mir Qasim formed an alliance with the Nawab of Ayodh, Sujauddullah, and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, and formed a confederate army to fight against the British East India Company. As soon as the British declared war against Mir Qasim, the Confederate Army fought against them, but ultimately the Confederate Army was defeated by the British East India Company. Mir Qasim left from the battlefield, and the two Nawabs, Nawab of Ayodh, Sujauddullah, was returned back his estate Ayodh, provided he had to pay 53 lakh rupees as war indemnity to the British East India Company. And since it was Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II was requested to provide to give some concessions to the British East India Company. So Shah Alam II agreed to give him the Diwani of Bengal and Bihar and Odisha, the right to collect revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, provided the British East India Company gave him two provinces, Kara and Allahabad, to Shah Alam II, and 26 lakh. They also agreed to pay 26 lakh rupees annually to the emperor of the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. A sum of rupees 26 lakhs, not a sum of rupees 26 lakhs. 26 lakhs they agreed to pay to Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II every year. And a treaty was signed. The name of the treaty is Allahabad Treaty. Then dual government also introduced by Robert Clive after having gained the right of Diwani of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Robert Clive introduced a new system. The name of the system is dual government, and this dual government is such kind of system where there were two rulers. In one side British ruler was there, and another side Nawab was there. But the real power was rested in the hands of East India Company, but not in the hands of Nawab. So Nawab was asked to shoulder all responsibilities of administration, but the British had no responsibility of administration. They had only the right of collecting taxes and revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. And at the same time, when they obtained the right of collecting taxes and revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, under that system, they agreed to pay a small amount to the Nawab of Bengal to look after the administration. But the amount they sanctioned was very inadequate and insufficient, the amount. That's why the Nawab was unable to shoulder his responsibilities correctly, and the Britishers already had become kingmaker. They decided to shift another one and make another one Nawab of Bengal. And the English did not share the revenue of Bengal with the Nawab, but only provided the small amount for amount of it to run the administration. So this system of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, in the year 1770, a famine was taken place throughout Bengal. In the year 1770, a famine was taken place in Bengal, but the British did not provide any aid for the affected areas of Bengal. On the contrary, they collected revenues mercilessly and forcefully. It created an atmosphere fish out of water. But the evils of the dual government system began to manifest. In the year 1772, the British headquarters, England, sent Warren Hastings as the new Governor General of India. So, new Governor General Warren Hastings abolished the dual government in the year 1772, and he also shifted Nawab from power and pensioned him off. The treasury, the treasury of Bengal, the new Governor General Warren Hastings shifted from Murshidabad to Calcutta, because the former glory and image of Murshidabad had gone. The former glory of Murshidabad had gone. No longer the illustrious Nawabi reign was there, nor the Nawabs were as same as they were before. That's why the glory and image of Murshidabad had gone. That's why on reaching Murshidabad, the new Governor General Warren Hastings shifted the capital from Murshidabad to Calcutta, and treasury from Murshidabad to Calcutta also. And it became the capital of British India. Which one? Murshidabad. Murshidabad became the capital of British India as well. Afterwards, the company took over the responsibilities of administration. Earlier, under the system of dual government, the company had no responsibility of administration, but only they obtained the right to collect taxes and revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. But under the new system, which was introduced by Warren Hastings, the new Governor General of India, under that system he shouldered the responsibility of administration as well as the responsibility of collecting all taxes and revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. So this is the subject matter and content of the lesson, my dear students. You have to keep it in your mind. If you have any problem, any difficulty, let me know. I shall help you. And what is about the dual government? There were two rulers under the dual government. In one side, company, and in other side, the Nawab. But the British company would collect the taxes and revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, but had no responsibility of administration, but the Nawab. the Nawab had no right to collect taxes and revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, but only they had right to look after the administration. But the British just drained the wealth of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha by way of having the right of Diwani from Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. But they did not want to share the amount of money they collected from revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, but only a very small amount of money they provided for the Nawab of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha to look after or to run the administration. But the amount they paid was very less, very inadequate. That's why the dual system of government had an utter failure. And ultimately, that news reached East India Company headquarters, England. On hearing its drawback, the British East India Company headquarters sent Warren Hastings as the new Governor General of India. New Governor General Warren Hastings, abolished the dual government and introduced a new system. Under that system, he shifted the capital of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha from Murshidabad to Calcutta, and he also shifted the treasury of Murshidabad to Calcutta, and afterwards, Calcutta became the capital of British India, and at the same time, he shouldered the responsibility of the administration and the collection of revenues of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. So now the British became not only the tax collector, but also the ruler of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Up to this, my dear students, I think you better understood about the subject matter of this lesson, the rise of British power in Bengal. Next day, I shall discuss you about the system. I shall teach you later. Thank you. Next topic I shall teach you next day. Thank you. Next day I shall teach you a new lesson. Next day I shall introduce a new lesson, a new topic. And before that you must go through the same lesson I completed teaching today. And from this lesson I have already given you some homeworks. Please prepare the homework in your homework copies. Thank you.